Hey, thank you, Robert. Good evening, everybody. There is a little webinar we're going to have tonight, and I am joined by Mr. David Peace, as well as a number of folks here in the Zoom room. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome. You are welcome to join us for the class tonight. It's not going to be a class like an xLights class. It's going to be a class on something that many of you are familiar with, or maybe you haven't heard of. But the gentleman with us tonight, Mr. David Peace from xLights, has created a web page, and the web page is called what is it, David?
LightShowHub.
So on this LightShowHub, he built this when? You built this when? How long has this been in service? Like 2019, 2018?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's probably before that. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably 2017. Yeah, somewhere around there.
So this was David's entrance, I think, into the holiday hobby side of sharing and giving back to the community. I think that's where it came
And I
from.
think that was the pirate ship.
Oh, the pirate ship was part of the first thing, yeah, and the pea steaks, So
Yeah,
now,
That was Tiku.
that was Tikva. That was Tikva.
so in any event, I'm going to go ahead and pin our star here, Mr. David Peace. Thank you for joining us, Dave. Why don't you go ahead and tell us all about the Light Show Hub and exactly what it is that you're going to be talking about tonight, because you have some
Sure.
exciting news, right?
Yeah, so LightShowHub was originally done as just a mega tree simulator. That was the first thing. I was building a mega tree. There was some tools out there that generated some like static images, but if you wanted things like dynamic measurements and everything, there wasn't much out there. So I created this mega tree simulator and I put it up there. And then, I was getting a little frustrated with building custom models in xLights. And so that's how the custom model builder came about, was just trying to make it so you could build a custom model without having to worry about the grid, because, custom models in xLights are very Excel grid oriented. And I built that, I don't remember what it was, 2017, and I worked back and forth with a number of people in the community to try to get that working well. And then it was done, and I have not touched it since. Despite all of the emails that I get of this is broken or how about this feature and all of this other stuff, I've been very busy with the business and all of that stuff, and it was never just a huge priority. Frankly, it's still not a huge priority, but I'll get to why I actually did it in a second. But I was getting all this stuff, and one of the biggest things was now my customers of Experience Lights were like, hey, I rely on your tool to actually generate this content for my drive-through or whatever. But if you guys have used LightShowHub on any larger custom models, it really starts to choke when you get to like 1,500 lights, 1,500 nodes. And because that's all done on the CPU, it's all done with not the best code. It really wasn't built for high. And actually, back then, when it was built, there wasn't really any high density stuff, right? It was much smaller models, much smaller things, and Anyways,
A big prop was probably 200 pixels. That was
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
spinners. A spinner was 200 and some.
So I got people now that are like, oh, I want a custom model that's like 10,000 lights, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, it won't do that. It's really, really not well. So I always knew that I wanted to port everything over to WebGL, which pushes everything to your GPU rather than to your CPU, and it's a lot more efficient. So that's what I did. And then along with that, I also created a bunch of new tools. So I'm going to walk you guys through that. So why now? Um, the truth is, I have been so focused and heads down on so many things with Experience Lights. Every so often, you need to have a diversion to get your brain on something that you enjoy. I come from a software background, not a hardware background. Hardware is something that I started back in 2014, but my entire career has been on the software side. That's what I love. I love software. And so I just was like, I need to push the hardware aside for a second, get back to just software and do something fun that I enjoy. I'm like, all right, we're going to do some new cool tools. We're going to make it more performant and then add some new stuff too. So without further ado, we will walk through this. Now, the website I'm going to be walking through is something that you guys are welcome to use. It will be up. The URL you'll see here in a second is QA dash, and I'll just put it in the chat here, QA-www.lightshowhub.com. And this is where I put code that is not released yet, that I'm just testing. So this is something you guys can go to and you can mess with and you can play with, and you can also submit bugs. The old site is still there and it will remain there until I feel like the new version is ready to move over. So at this point, I am looking for feedback and looking for people to try it out and tell me what things don't work. I know there's a lot of things.
Link one more time so I can put it in the comments.
He did. He already put it there.
I think I put it in the comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant on Facebook. You're good.
Okay, got it.
Oh, yeah, Facebook. Yeah, that's a good idea, Rob.
So yeah, so you guys are welcome to use it. It should always be there unless I'm doing some release, in which case it'll come down and go back up. But yeah, let's get started. All right. So here's the new LightShowHub. Obviously it got a bit of a facelift as well, just from a UI perspective, which we'll see here. There are these tools now. So we have the Megatree calculator, which has been updated, the custom model builder, which has also been updated with a lot of new features. We have a voltage drop calculator, a color order visualizer, frame rate and pixels per port calculator, a long range receiver calculator, and a network traffic calculator. So a few of these, namely these last four, are questions. Well, actually, all of these new ones are questions I get frequently at Experience Lights. How many pixels can I run per port? How does long-range receivers work? How many pixels can I run per port if I have four long-range receivers? And the answers to these are always like, well, it depends, right? But you need to have a better way of visualizing it. So we'll go through those and show you what those mean in a moment. So we're going to start off with Megatree calculator only because this is the easiest one to go over. From a functionality standpoint, it's identical to what it was before. There's nothing new that I've added to this tool, other than the fact that it is now WebGL. So this is all being rendered in on the GPU now instead of the CPU, so it's a lot more performant, and you can get up to, I don't know what I think I tested 100,000 lights and it was working fine. Obviously, I've got a more powerful Mac, so it's more powerful than yours because Mac is superior. But I saw Clyde's face on that one. That was just to get a reaction. No, this is exactly the same. Just has the new UI, cleaner UI, and has all the rendering done with WebGL. So if you use the old one, it'll look pretty much exactly the same on the new one, exact same functionality. So I'm going to actually expand chat here because, oh, see, there's 3 people that agreed with me on the Mac thing. I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, but they don't count, so it doesn't matter.
I'm assuming there's not any questions on this just because it is so similar to the way that it was before. But before I move on, is there any questions on this? Clyde's new PC is slower than a low model M1. Oh, wow. Sorry, I didn't mean to start a class.
Yeah, let's not get into this because because we want this to be about your model builder here because this is exciting.
Okay, so this is what has the most changes. This is what has the most updates. There are 2 things notably that are still missing, only in that I haven't done them yet. Doesn't mean they won't be in there. They're just not in there yet. The first thing that is not in there yet is the 3D. The 3D was never done that well anyways, so I'm still trying to figure out how to do that better. And number 2 is the measuring between nodes. So those are 2 things that I know still need to be in there, and those are going to be coming soon. But other than that, this has changed quite dramatically from what has been there before. You'll see some similar menus up at the top, but there's a lot of new functions that are in there. So let's start with the generate grid. This is something that has been asked a lot. where they're like, hey, I just need to generate a grid of a very specific size, and I want to be able to move it around. So now there's handles on selections where there were not before. And you can, I'm going to just start over real quick so that I had the canvas built for a very large model, so it was harder to see. So they have the handles now, so you can stretch and resize any selection. So any selection you have now, this is new from the previous. You can hold down the Shift key to maintain aspect ratio. So if you're familiar with Photoshop, it will be very similar. And then if you're holding down the Option key, it will do it from the center instead of the opposite corner. And then if you hold the Option key and the Shift key at the same time, then you get from the center with aspect ratio. So those are just some of the things that should have been in the old one that weren't, but when you have a selection now, you can actually move it and resize it and scale it. You have your primary tools up here, much of which will look the same or similar to what it had before. So if you want to add new nodes, you can add new nodes. You can do auto numbering. Right now it's doing auto numbering so that every node that gets added has a number on it. You can add numbers to nodes. So this is, again, very similar to previous. And then you'll see this new one here, which is add numbers to nodes by dragging a line. So what this does is as I'm dragging, you'll see it's drawing a line of a specific thickness. And while I'm drawing it, I can use my wheel on my mouse to change the width of that line. And what that's going to allow me to do is draw a line and auto number as I go across. So this makes numbering quite a bit easier. And then also, if you do it, you could even do it at a diagonal. So really trying to make the whole numbering process easier and faster by just dragging a line. So you can go from corner to corner, and it's going to be from where you drag to the end of your drag position. Next is, can you do a freeform line? Chris, not quite sure what you mean by freeform line. I'm going to get to that. Okay, so I'll get to the curves in a moment here because there's some stuff on that. But the next thing I wanted to show you guys is the auto numbering. So there's now a tool here called Auto Number Selected Nodes. And this has a lot of different ways to basically have the system follow a path and automatically number the nodes in the custom model. So we're going to just keep this default for now. We're going to start from the bottom left. We're going to be doing a vertical pattern starting from node number 1, and it'll show you a little icon here which the path that it will follow. So if I do auto number, it now autoed that in a grid-like pattern from the bottom left corner. There's and just so you guys are aware, this is doing it by selection and not the entire custom model, and that's on purpose because some of the pathfinding algorithms are quite intense, and if you have something like 10,000 nodes and it's evaluating what the best path is to follow, it can get pretty intense. So really, for larger models, you want to do things in segments rather than just say, hey, auto number my whole model. This is not meant to be the magic pill to automatically route a very large model like large spinners or large wreaths. This isn't going to just be like, hey, I just had to press one button and everything is routed for me. You still need to guide it. You still need to help it along, but it will reduce the amount of time you're spending on numbering quite dramatically. So in addition to the grid pattern, there's also circular patterns. So if I wanted to start from the bottom left, I can do a circular pattern, and that'll follow a circular pattern around. Now, obviously, this is very simple for grids like this, but if I import, this is well, we'll start with this one, barn.dxf, because this is actually a real from a real customer. So if you used the DXF import before, there were some times when it would import and it wasn't accurate. Now you can import DXF files and SVG files, so both of those will work, but the unit of measure is not embedded in these files, or typically it's not embedded in these files. And the way that the point finding algorithm works is it looks for the most common used geometry in that file and assumes that's the whole. But depending on the unit of measure, that could actually change things because you could get down to a unit of measure that's so small, the number of nodes is not accurate. So if you click around to these different units of measure, you'll notice that this number, well, in this case, it's not actually changing, but sometimes this number will change. You're like, okay, well, I know I have 3865 nodes in this, so I'm going to import that and going to center and scale. So I just bumped up my, since this has so many nodes on it, I'm just bumping up the size of my canvas to 4,000 to 4,000. But it creates an easier way to see what's going on here. So if I select a bunch of random nodes here, I do auto number selected nodes and go back to my grid pattern, you can see here, this is not a perfect grid anymore, but it still did the up and down pattern for numbering. And this is going to show you why this isn't perfect, but I'm going to do the clockwise circular pattern on this, and it's probably not going to be perfect. So this is a great example. So it went from 23 to 24, and you could argue, well, why did it skip 88? The algorithm is not perfect. You could also say, why did it skip 91? It's looking in a radial direction to find the next value or the next point that is there with some fuzziness factor. The 91 was just outside of the outside of that range. But you can see here it did a pretty decent job still. It's still going in a circle and it's circling around into the middle. So for sections of your custom model, this really makes it super simple because you can do sections in a pattern and then connect them all together. Now, could you do the entire model? Yes, you can do the entire model. Is it going to do what you want? Probably not. So you can see here, this one takes a little bit longer because it is a lot of nodes. It did work. It did auto route this entire thing in a circular pattern from the bottom left and circled all around. Mostly did it correct, but this really, again, isn't going to be the magic pill to auto number everything, but it does get pretty dang close. So another one is shortest distance. And the only reason I included shortest distance because the people that were helping me test were asking why this was not in there. What shortest distance does is it starts from a node and it says jump to the next closest node, jump to the next closest node, and so on and so forth. It works. It's highly inefficient, and B, it's never going to give you the results you want. The only reason that I included it is so people don't ask me, why is the shortest distance algorithm not in there? The technical reason is it's called the traveling salesman problem. It's something very similar to Google Maps. And it says, I have an array of destinations, of points on a map, and I want to hit each of these, and I want them to be the shortest path possible to hit all of these different points. But in addition, I also don't want any of my lines to cross. And I want to make sure that a line is never exceeding a certain length. We have a lot of different rules. Very, very complicated stuff, not impossible, certainly. But as far as I went with ChatGPT to try to get it to work, could not get it to work efficiently. So it's just a very simple, stupid shortest path algorithm. So let me show you what that looks like, and it's not what you would expect. And the reason is because depending on where your nodes are, you're like, well, why didn't it jump to this one? This one makes more sense. Well, it makes more sense to you visually, but to the system, it's like, well, this one is 7 pixels away, and this one is 10 pixels away. So it's there only to make a point of how it doesn't work very well. So it's not something that you will actually use other than just showing you that it doesn't work. All right, so what other auto numbering tools are there? I believe there's a few more. So you can go from the leftmost node and you can just do a linear left to right. And that is going to just keep going from the left to the right. And since this is very grid-like, it's very grid-like. Computer science training for traversing a graph. Yeah, it's not exactly like that, unfortunately. It's complicated. It's very complicated, and it's very intensive on the CPU. So, yeah. So that's all the auto numbering. We can do one that is more simplistic, just to show you. This is worstVendor.svg that I got from one of our friends at EFL Designs, and this was just being used as a test. And you can go to auto number, and let's just say we want to do a circular pattern from the bottom left, and now the whole thing is numbered. So again, it's actually really quite good. I'm looking forward to people trying it. If you don't want to trust the auto system, that's what this guy is for, is so that you can do it yourself. So let's clear all the node numbers. And then, if you know the path that you want to follow, well, you can just do it like this, and get it exactly doing what you want. Will it know if pixel 25 and 26 is more than 4 inches? So once I get the measuring in there, yes, but right now, no. So right now it doesn't have any concept of measurement. All right, let's go into, a couple other tools here. So find by node number, that's new. It'll find a node based on the number. You zoom in on it. These are similar tools that were on the right before, but I added it to the menu just because there were so many of them. So we have rotate, mirror, align, things like that. I noticed on the auto numbering that it knew about alternate node skipping. Is that true? No, it doesn't do any alternate node skipping presently. However, that was something that somebody brought up, and I'm going to write down just so I don't forget that. Specifically for this one, this would be actually the perfect tool for node skipping, to go to the end and then come back. Yeah, I'm going to add that. What about if you have two nodes numbered the same? You cannot. So very similar to the old one. It does require that there be unique node numbers. Let me preface it. You can technically have node numbers that are the same. It is going to confuse things because there's certain things in the system, specifically with submodels, that are going to get very confused if two nodes have the same number. So you do need to, if you want this to behave the way that you want, especially with submodels, you do need to make sure that they have unique numbers. So if I go back to 1 here, so see here, so 1 and 1, 2 and 2. So I do have duplicates. It did work, but it got confused. So not something that you definitely necessarily going to want to do. So let's go into submodels. So submodels are, I think, pretty fun. Actually, before I get into submodels, I need to apply numbers because submodeling only works with numbers. DXF supports an optional unit header. Does it read if it's included? No, it does not. I'll tell you, in the history of me using this, in the example DXF files that I've received, 0 of them have ever included that header, and I've looked for them. So I don't know what software or people are using, Scott, but none of them include the header. And the header that is included in SVGs is typically wrong. It's typically used in points, even though it'll say inches, and it's not. So it's very interesting. So that's why I add it there as an option, because it is A, wrong with SVGs, and B, typically not included for DXF. Okay, so let's talk about submodeling. So when you go into a submodel and you're editing a submodel, it's going to go into the submodeling mode, and you'll notice that there's three additional tools on the right. There is a add to submodel drawing a line, which is very similar to what we saw previous. Add a submodel by drawing a box, which is going to do a linear submodel, like a rectangle back and forth. And then you can just do it by adding individual nodes. But one of the things that Brian McVeigh really wanted is the ability to have direction and the ability to maintain position. Well, jumping ahead. So just like auto numbering, you can drag a line. When you go and edit a submodel, all of the lines disappear and the numbers show. So now I can drag and drop to add to this model. So you can see here, it went from 1 and 25 to 19. It's kind of summarizing the, because it's going in a reverse pattern here. And you can create your submodel, and it will start with showing the beginning of your path as the green line and the end of your path as the red line. So this is your submodel. If you want to insert in the middle, you can hold the Command key or Control key on Windows, and that is going to move the target. You saw the target that was over here before. I've just moved the target to the middle, and that means that's where I'm going to be inserting now. So if you need to insert in the middle, you can do that. And you can even, if you wanted to, come over here and just edit the file directly. So if there was numbers that you wanted to enter manually, you can do that as well, or you can come in here. So the little target is what shows to say where the next, where you're inserting into that submodel. And then as you add submodels, obviously this gets nice, because then you can kind of click back and forth really easily to see where the submodels are, how they start, what the starting color is, and what the end color is between them. What I have not created yet, and I was right in the middle of doing it before I went on vacation, is there's a big list of submodels, and you can just hit the down key and then just go through those to see all of your submodels. But what's really nice about it, I think, is that you can see the actual path that's followed for that submodel from the beginning to the end, and without the other net kind of interfering with it. So I'm going to do a new custom model real quick just to clear this out. I'm going to generate a grid, and the same. So since I don't have any numbers, that's why these shows up as gray. So we need to add numbers first. So I'm going to just auto number this in a grid pattern, go back to my submodels. And now I can actually do a rectangle as well. So a rectangle is going to start from where I drag and go to where I end the drag. So again, if you have a submodel that you want to do, it will do it in the pattern from where you start dragging the square to where you end dragging the square, and it will automatically fill in all those numbers for you. And then you can kind of switch back and forth between them if you need to. And then again, you can always come in here and just edit those values directly as well. And then finally, just adding nodes individually. So if you come in here, you want to change this to this guy here. So 69 will go to 70, and then you can change where you're inserting the thing. Again, if you're doing it through the UI, or you can manually enter it over here. And once you're done with the submodel, you'll go back to the normal one here. So I'm going to go back to, let's go back to worst vendor. We'll do auto numbering. So this is, I accidentally pressed the wrong thing here. I did up and down ordering on this guy. So it did not do one that, a grid pattern from the bottom left. So it did it accurately according to what I asked it to do, but obviously that doesn't make any much sense for what we want. So I'm going to change that to a circular pattern. So it renumbers it to a circular pattern. And then I'm going to export it. So you'll notice that the grid button, or refine the grid, is gone here. That is now part of the export process. And so depending on what you want your export resolution to be, that's going to change the way that it appears in xLights. So this is the preview of what you're going to see in xLights pretty accurately. And then it'll also tell you what that file size is going to be. So here you can see 77 by 77. That is the dimensions of what is going to be imported into xLights as the custom model. The bigger you get, so we get up to 1,000 by 1,000, which is the size of my thing. This is a 1-to-1 ratio. It's going to generate a 1 megabyte file. Obviously, that's going to look the best, but it's going to have the biggest file size. And you can kind of just go through here until you're like, okay, well, that's close enough. 16 kilobytes. I got 125 by 125. Hit export, save the X model. So now you don't have to import it to see how good it looks. You can kind of see exactly what that's going to look like for before you export it. Still have the same print diagram, so you can do a print of a large diagram if you need to. Generates a PDF, and yep, that is it. So you have very similar tools for UI. Like I said, the only thing that's really missing right now is the ability to measure and the 3D tools, but it is very close to complete. There's the few things that I need to do on submodels to get those finished, and 3D and measuring. So before I move on, I know I touched on a lot of things there. The auto numbering, I think, is what is going to be the biggest time saver for people. Is there any questions on anything that I showed on here? And Clyde, are you still around?
Yes, I am. I just turned off the camera so I didn't distract you. I didn't.
Oh, no worries.
So everybody, they're muted right now. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in chat.
Okay.
I am curious. Whenever you were on the build page, whenever not where you were in the submodel dialog there, but you're in the regular model right now, right? The grid
submodel, yep.
Yeah. Well, you were in the regular. Go back to the regular one and the actual size of the model. Now, is this the actual pixel scale size or image scale size?
So the whole concept of this originally was to take out the concept of the grid or Excel from the process.
Right, I understand.
So this width and height is the pixel dimensions of this white square on your screen.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you have a really big model, so for instance, 4,000 by 4,000 is as big as it gets, and you can zoom out here.
So what I'm asking is can they be smaller than that? Can you manually type those in?
Yeah, you can type these numbers in.
So you have. I'm just going back to the days of an old Boscoyo snowflake with 42 pixels or 48 pixels. Like you don't need 1,000 points to go into, and so you can make it smaller to fit that size.
Yeah, and so 1,000 by 1,000 is the smallest that I have it limited here. I can make it smaller, but the export is really where I think that what you're describing is going to come in handy, because that's where you're going to be able to refine it to a more reasonable size. So even though this is 1,000 by 1,000, if I auto number this, do export, then I can set this to something more reasonable. Like, okay, well, this actually should just be 100 by 100.
Right. Yeah. So that's okay. That's what I wanted to get to, and the reason for that is of course the developers, or Alex is in the room, they can correct me if I'm wrong. There was an issue if their models are limited to 1,000 by 1,000 in xLights. After you open them, it will resize them no matter what size they are down to 1,000 by 1,000.
Okay.
And but up until that point, if they don't touch the model dialog, it won't edit it down. It will still take in if you do a 2,000 by 2,000. I can be wrong.
I don't even think that this will allow you to export that size. So really, in my experience, a 6 or a 7 grid size is usually the best compromise between resolution and file size.
So The last time that I had the pleasure of messing around with this was to get a more prettier model, if you will, and we had it jacked up, and there were, I mean, just all kinds of squares whenever we imported the model.
Like this guy, like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, no. It was it was a massive canvas. It was like a 1,000 by, we'll say, 1,200, and some of the pixels were off the screen. And whenever I went in to edit it, at that time, xLights was editing it down. But apparently, Alex has said that they no longer edit the model.
Okay. Got it.
Or they no longer, no, excuse me, they don't cut it off. Is that true, Alex? Or did I misunderstand you? Because it did cut off whenever it was bigger than 1,000 by 1,000 if you hit the edit. But now it won't let you edit it.
Mute. I think he's asking to be unmuted.
Right. Okay, that answers the question. Anything else that anybody had? Tony just popped one up there. Had some issues late last year trying to log in and order into the older site to save designs. Is there anything I need to do to try out this new one?
The new site doesn't have any of the login yet. Right now it's just wide open. So hopefully everybody is gonna not crash my server. So it's totally wide open right now. So there's no, there shouldn't be any permissions or login or anything like that.
Okay.
Cool. All right, let's move on. So the next one, I'm gonna just reset all values, is the voltage drop calculator. So this is meant to just in real time visualize the voltage drop over a string of lights. So I'm going to just walk through some of the values. So you could do 5 volts, 12 volts, or 24 volts. And you can immediately see on the right how this changes with a real-time graph on the right. So before we get too far into these, you can also set your own thresholds. So right now the default is 70% of the source voltage is considered bad, and 80% or higher is considered good, and anything in between is considered like the warning area. There's no science between the of those numbers. I didn't do any research on those numbers. That's just the default. So, but you can set them to whatever you want. And it goes through red, yellow, and green right now, but you can set it to, a lot of times what'll happen is your whites will start to pink. So you can set it to white, pink, black as well. But these are just the defaults that it sets to for the different thresholds. So back on the values on the voltage drop calculator, so you can set how many pixels are on a string. So this is just for a single string of lights. So we're going to set it to 500 pixels. And you can hover over any point in this graph and it'll show you the pixel number and the approximate value of the voltage. So if you get pixel 256, you're at about 9.9 volts. You get to 282, you're about 9.4, which is getting a little risky. And then 339, you're at 8.3. So again, really easy to visualize. Now, this is assuming a default current of 50 milliamp a pixel, which I don't think any pixel right now is currently 50 milliamp. I think it's less now. I think things are getting more efficient. But that's just the default, just because that's what it used to be. But some of them are 30 milliamp, 20 milliamp. But you can set that to whatever your pixels actually are, and then whatever your max brightness is setting on that output, because again, this is for a single string of lights, what the spacing is on your pixels. So the longer the spacing, the longer your string of lights, right? And the pixel wire size. I have the pixel wire size here, but chances of you being a true 18 gauge is next to 0. There's nothing that says 18 gauge in our hobby is actually 18 gauge. But usually it's closer to 22. 2022 is probably more accurate for the pixels that we use. But, you can see here that, okay, well, we have 500 pixels, 12 volts. If we change that to 24 volts, that does quite a lot better than 12 volts. But then you can see here, this is all of the different areas of power injection, and it defaults with power injection being at pixel 1 with an injection wire of 1 foot at 18 gauge, but you can move that and say, hey, I'm actually just injecting power at the end. You can kind of see how that affects things by injecting at different locations in the wire, or you can add an additional piece of injection. So here I'm adding injection at the end of the line, but again, I can move that to anywhere that I want. And it's just like, oh, well, if I stick that at pixel 335, now it's not so bad. Whereas if it's at the end, I get this droop in the middle that's not so good. But if I inject, right around here, things look pretty good. So there's two check boxes up here just to make things easier to see. You can show the good and bad lines, or you can show the injection points, and these show where the two injection lines are. And then you have some just general information here on the right for that power injection. And that's it. So just looking here. Wow, these graph animations are amazing. Thank you, Jordan. And I know he's just saying that facetiously because I was so proud of my graph animations. But yes, they are amazing. Thank you. A default of 0.06 or 0.05 on this produces so many questions. Folks needs 6 power supplies on a tree that only needs 2. Yeah. So Steve, like I said, the actual current per pixel, I haven't tested them in years, so long, and I know the current is much lower than it used to be. So I do not know what the default is, but I would be, or I shouldn't say default, most common for new bullet pixels, whatever the most common current per light is, just again at full brightness, full white. I don't know what that is. I know it's less.
Yeah, that might take some. Might take some different people testing voltages on pixels and usages. Because that's a huge sample size. You're going to have to sample a lot of them to come up with a.
Yeah. So what's funny is even when it was 50 or 60 milliamp, or what they said was 50 or 60 milliamp light, I don't even think it was that.
No,
at that point.
it was running around like 4 or 3.
Yeah, well, I don't know about it. Was lower. Yeah, definitely a lot lower. Yeah, for sure.
40 or 30, I'd rather. Excuse me.
Oh, yes.
My bad. So there's a couple questions. This would be pretty cool if you had made some presets based off the vendor and pixel type. Brad.
That is a great idea. Yeah. I'll write that down. That is a really good idea. Presets.
Chris said these graphs scream John Spiker.
So when I was making this, I was like, oh man, I hope John Spiker's not mad at me, because he has a voltage drop calculator too, and it's great. This was not meant to like challenge his at all. I just wanted to, again, this was just scratching a creative itch because I wanted to do something fun. This is not open source. No, this is all closed David source. Sorry.
So Timmy asked a little while back, whenever you were answering questions earlier, he said you said there will be you said you will be able to size the model later for 3D peeps or 3D props, I think.
Yeah, so I have not added the 3D stuff back into the custom model builder, only because the way that I implemented it before I didn't like. So I still have to figure out how I'm going to do 3D. I don't think a lot of people used the 3D in the previous version, so it's not a huge. I'm probably going to release this without the 3D, only because it wasn't used very much before, so I don't think people are going to be too upset about it. But I do plan on redoing that so that it's a better experience. Yeah. I just don't know what that's going to look like just yet.
Alex asked, does it handle power first to last and get a new middle point?
Yeah, you can add as many as you want. So if I wanted to add, one at the end and one in the middle, you can add as many power injection points as you want. Yep. And then it shows at the right here, how much current is being drawn at each of the injection points. So if you need to calculate how many power supplies is going to be required, you can use that calculation on the right.
Brian Burrell asked, what about adding graphics or options for seed pebble pixels?
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into the presets, right? And I really do like that idea, just so that you can have, the seed pixel 1 inch spacing, and so it fills in the current, the pixel spacing and the wire size for you automatically. Yeah, and the voltage, I suppose, as well. So yeah, no, I like the presets idea. The brightness is set here, Bill. So max brightness. All the calculations are based on whatever is set here. So if I set this to 100%, you can see a much steeper slope on the power.
Did we get everybody's question?
You have some firmware for your controllers that will sample and profile a string. It will tell you the current that is being drawn, but it won't tell you necessarily what, it doesn't know if you have, power coming from, let's say you're balancing from the same port, power from the same port out. It doesn't know that you've done it at the end or the beginning or anything like that. All it knows is the current that's being drawn or sourced from that port. So, Steve, we're not going to get into a balancing versus injection debate here. They're words that everybody kind of understands. Injection it can be from a different power supply. I get it. Balancing is from the same. Whatever it is, you're injecting power. Where that comes from,
at PPD, we don't inject or balance. We buy inject.
Yeah, we buy more controllers.
Yeah, so I tell people, and this will help that narrative, is this isn't simple stuff, and whatever you do this year, you're going to forget next year. Mm-hmm. Just don't do it. Just throw 200-300 pixels on a port and be done with it. Like that's the easiest way to go about it. And it's going to save you so many headaches the following year when you're like, well, what the heck was I doing here with all these extra cords? And then you plug it in and...
So Mike asked an interesting question. Would it be possible for configuration page so that that can be saved for vendor pixel specs? That way users can update their own specs as they buy pixels.
Yeah, so that's where I think these presets are going to come in. So on every page that I have here, you'll see there's the save and share, which is really ugly right now. I'm going to make this prettier, but you can actually copy and paste this into the URL and then preload anything. So if a vendor wanted to say, hey, look, here's my configuration, they could just supply a link with this information and it's going to pre-fill all this stuff for you. So that's something any vendor can do if they'd like. Aside from the presets, they could just create their own links. They come in here, set the current, set the pixel spacing, set the wire gauge, copy this link, and then people can just link directly to it and see what it looks like.
Just a forewarning and a heads up. Sometimes the supplier changes how they build a chip, and that's not known to the vendor, the pixel vendor. So we could be, I'm sure everybody could be ultra specific with everything, and that's probably why they give a little bit of fudge room to the actual requirements or usage that it's going. They give you a bigger number so that they're not on the hook for it, right? With that being said, if something changes, the vendor may not. I mean, it's not like the vendors are sitting there in their warehouse testing their pixels every time they come in the door, like meaning they're not plugging them in. So that while it is a great idea, it's also important that you do your own testing so that you can enter your own information. So
yeah, And the thing about this is the math on this is all accurate. The reality is going to be very different. This is supposed to help and guide you, right? But the fact of the matter is, as you're increasing current, you're increasing resistance.
Hmm.
The whole characteristics of everything is changing in real time. So it's not actually accurate. But it's pretty dang close to, the real world results. But to your point, um, this is all dependent on what you're getting from China is actually accurate. And they do change things, as we saw during the 2020 situation. Things were getting replaced and substituted, and yeah, it's
So these are
mileage may vary.
so these are going to be called lunar presets.
Lunar presets?
That's it.
Oh, Brad Lunar.
Yeah. Lunatics. I agree. I agree. Very fitting.
And D gates, no, they're not 100% white. They're based on the max brightness value here. So I can push this up to 100%, but I have it here at 30%. So it's based on what that max brightness is set at. All right.
So I'm curious now. We this is the new version of it, and this is out there. Everybody can go mess with this right now. I'm curious. When did you? And it's been a while since I used your the first setup that you made. But I remember going in, and was there a list that it would save the models that I had done previously, or did it only save the last model that I?
So it's only the last one, and that is another change that's coming. And I just hid the tab because it's not done yet. But there will be in the Mega Tree calculator and the custom model builder. And heck, I guess since we're talking about presets, we just put it here as well. But the ability for you to save your multiple configurations for future. So whether that's multiple custom models, multiple mega trees, or even with the voltage drop calculator, maybe you want to create your own set of profiles that are unique to your strings, just so you can come back and quickly reference them. So that is the reason why I made everything such that you could easily link it by URL in the URL, so that you could easily save these and load these and share them without having to, load everything in on the server side. You can just pass in all the values through the URL, and it'll just preload everything.
So are you saying that if I created a model and I wanted to share it with somebody, I could give them a link to the LightShowHub?
Yep.
And
Yep,
and it will
exactly.
it won't worry about logging into a customer account and all that stuff. It'll just download it.
Well, right now it won't. It's still going to. So once I get this all released, it'll still have single sign-on with Google or Facebook or whatever you have, and that is only so that I can track abuse. That's the only reason I'm doing it. If you guys were around, during the holidays, I forget when it was, but there was a couple bad actors that were. This is not a commercial tool. It's not meant to be a commercial tool. It's for the community. And there was people, thousands of models. It was insane, and they were taking up an immense amount of space and doing a lot of server-side stuff. I've anyways. Long story short, it will have a login once it is moved forward, but it is only to ensure there's not abuse
Right.
or people not doing it.
No, I like the idea of being able to share a model with somebody through, I already have it up there. I'll just log in, click create link, and share the link. And I like that.
Yeah, but you will be able to do everything without a login, except for the only thing that requires you to log in is saving and exporting custom models. And that's the only thing. Everything else you can do not logged in. It's not a big, yeah.
Now, you can still put an image in the background, right? That's
Yes.
that
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
That part's in there.
I forgot to show that.
Right.
Yeah, that's still in there. Yeah. So I don't have a image handy right now, but yes, yeah, you can do that.
But yes, it says background image there and upload. I wanted to bring that up because you hadn't mentioned it.
Yep.
Yeah, there are probably some not so nice actors out there that did some not so nice things. And took advantage.
Yeah, and they were getting, they thought they were getting pretty creative, but I kind of mapped them together because they were creating a bunch of fake accounts, and it was, yeah. Anyways, it was unfortunate. There's always somebody that ruins it for everybody, right? And this is meant to just be for residential people, for the community, not for commercial gain. So, yeah, you're bad, Brian. No, I gave Brian permission. I said it was okay. All right. Shall we move on?
Absolutely. Anybody, if you have any more questions, go ahead. We're going to keep moving here with, he's got a lot going on. This has been, this is interesting.
Yeah, luckily the ones after this are a lot easier, a lot faster. So hopefully we don't burn too much more of everybody's time. So another question I always get is color order. It's very confusing, and it's confusing to explain because people are like, well, why do I have to set it that way? Well, this will visualize for you exactly what's happening when you change color order and where. So on the left is the color order, or excuse me, is the color that you desire. Say you are in your sequencer and you set the light to purple. You want the color to be purple. So initial color order, this is what is being set in your sequencer: a red of 100%, green of 0%, a blue of 100%. Now, the first thing you do is you're saying, okay, I want to change the sequencer's color order. I want to change it to RBG. Okay, well, now what it just did is it switched the blue and the green channels. So this is what's coming out of your sequencer. This is what's getting saved in the FSEQ file. This is what's coming over the network in DDP or E131. This is what is being stored in the sequence. So the sequencer has a color order. So you can see here that the blue got moved into second position, RBG, red, green, blue. But the controller is still set to RGB. So let's say for a moment that our pixel is actually RBG. I'm setting the pixel's color order is RBG. So everything is great. This color, this is my desired color. This is the target color purple. This is what's actually showing up on my pixel. Now you can virtualize all of this without having to like pipe it through to see what happens when you change something. But you'll notice on the controller's color order is unchanged. It's RGB. Because that data that comes into the controller, it's not changing it. It's just leaving it the same. It's saying keep it as it is, which is the default RGB color order. Doesn't change it. So the default for 3-channel is RGB. The default for 4-channel is RGBW. When that happens, that means the controller is not changing anything. It's just passing through the data. You can see here, red comes red, blue is blue, green's green. The controller hasn't changed anything. And everything's fine. But what happens when I change the controller color order to RBG? Well, now it's crap. Now it's broken because the sequencer swapped blue and green. It stored blue and green. But the controller also says, oh, I need to switch blue and green. So it switches blue and green. And now you're back to the wrong color order. And now it's showing yellow. Because the pixel is reading red in the first position, which is 255. It's reading blue in the second position, which blue is 0. And it's reading green in the third position. And it thinks that 255 blue is green. So this is why this is so confusing, right? Because there's 3 different places where color order can change. But it's a very simple answer to get this to work all of the time. Okay, and this is where people get confused. Either change it on the either change it on the sequencer only and don't change it on the controller, or change it on the controller only and don't change it on the sequencer. So if I go back to RGB here, and then I change the controller to RBG, everything's fine. Because the sequencer didn't change anything. It is storing red is 255 as the first channel, green is 0, blue is 255. The controller then says, oh, I need to switch blue and green. Those need to swap. So now the controller is in charge of moving it. It moved it correctly, and everything is great. I admit when I am wrong, Steve, and I was wrong. But in my defense, uh, uh, Jackie did not describe the problem properly to me. So we'll talk about 4-channel here in a second. But this is just meant to visualize the different places where color order changes. And so people get confused because they say, oh, well, I changed everything to the sequencer set to RPG, the controller set to RBG, and I'm getting yellow when it's supposed to be purple. Why is that? Well, it's because the sequencer changes the color order, and then the controller changes the color order on top of that. So it switches it back. So these need to be one or the other and not both. So what about 4-color? So this is the issue that that Steve was discussing about last year, because there was a bug in Genius where the color order was not correct for if W was the first. RGBW worked fine, WRGB did not. So if I go to RGBW here and set everything to RGBW, everything is fine. Everything is fine because I have everything set to the default 4-channel, which is RGBW. This also shows you how the different mixing works, by the way, in xLights. So if you ever wondered what the 4th channel mixing strategy is, so for this guy, I'm going to hold down the shift key, and that'll make it gray. So if red and green and blue are all the same value, that becomes the white channel for this guy. If it's RGB, it sets red, green, and blue, but it doesn't set the white channel. And then it uses all 4 channels for white. Just an easier way to visualize that. Anyways, so if I have a 4-channel pixel, again, in the sequencer, it's only 3 colors, right? It's red, green, and blue. But if you want to change that 4th channel, you need to set something to white. So the 4th channel is going to be, in this case, R equals G equals B, it's going to set that 4th channel if all 3 values are exactly the same color. So if they're all 255, that means the 4th channel is going to be white. Okay, so the initial color order is all 255s. We only have 3-channel in the initial. The sequencer is going to store red, green, blue, white. Controller says red, green, blue, white. Everything's great. But if the actual color order is RBGW, now we have a problem, because the sequencer and the controller are both set to the default. If I set one of them to RBGW, it doesn't work because of a bug in my code. So let's ignore that for just a minute. I need to see why that's not working properly. Yeah. So we'll thanks, Steve. Yeah, that's great. Let's look at my console. I bet there's an error in there. No, there's not. Oh, math. All right, I'll need to figure out why my what's funny is that this is, a 4-channel is what wasn't working before. So something's not working now. RBG. Okay. All right. Well, we will fix that, but the 3-channel works. 3-channel works. Yeah. But either way, this does give it a very clear, I believe it's very clear way to visualize, how the color order changes and why things get jacked up if you don't have them in the right, updated in the right spot. All right, next one is frame rate. This I get, oh my gosh, I can't tell you guys how many times I get this question. Drives me crazy. Has nothing to do with the controller. The number of pixels per port as it relates to frame rate has nothing to do with your controller. It has everything to do with the pixel and the light. The light has a very specific timing, and they're all very, very similar. So I have some presets here, some lunar sets, and they have just kind of pre-filled in what those values are for those different serial. These are not clocked pixels; they are all serial pixels, which are more common. And it shows you how many pixels per port you can get for a specific frame rate. So if anybody is wondering, they don't have to do the math anymore. They can just come here and say, well, I want to do the Tom Bet George 100 frames per second. Okay, well, you can't exceed 331 pixels per port if you want that to be 100 frames a second. You'll also notice that all of these pixels, even though they're different protocols, are very similar in their timing, so much that this graph does not change very much. So the numbers are pretty consistent no matter what type of light that you're working with. But if anyone asks how many pixels per port, you can just send them here and they can enter in whatever values they want to if they have some custom pixel that has weird timings that aren't standard, and it'll update. So if you have if it's 5 microseconds per bit, that'll reduce things quite a bit. Most people don't even know what these mean, so just ignore it and trust the numbers. Okay, another one that I get, this is probably the second most common question that I get, is how many pixels can I run with a certain number of receivers? And the answer is, again, well, it depends. No matter how many daisy-chained long-range receivers that you have on a single port, does not matter. The controller sees that as 4 outputs. It could be you have 24 outputs. It could be you have 8 outputs daisy-chained on a long-range port. Doesn't matter. To the controller, that is 4 outputs. The only thing long-range receivers do is they just chop it up and they say, okay, well, the first 100 go here, second 100 go here. So you can see here, I have a 4-port receiver, daisy-chained to an 8-port receiver, daisy-chained to a 4-port receiver. And every single port, every single output from 1A to 1 to 4D has 100 pixels on those outputs. But to the controller, you have 4 outputs, and there's 400 pixels per output. So if I come in here and I change this to 600, I now have a port 3, which is 600 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100, which is 900 pixels. So in this scenario, with this many pixels assigned, the best possible frame rate I can hope for is 37 frames per second. Now, if I come in here and I say, oh, well, I want 600 on every port, 600 on every output. Well, now port 3 is 2400 pixels, and you can get, at best, 13 frames per second. This confuses so many people, so I'm really hopeful that this helps visualize what's actually going on, because it does not matter how many ports you have on a long-range chain. It's 4 ports. It's 4 outputs, period. You just have to add up all the 1s, all the 2s, all the 3s, all the 4s, and that gives you how many pixels you have on that specific output and what is the best frame rate you could possibly hope for given that setup. Any questions on this one? Because this one comes up so frequently that I really, really hope this helps people understand how this works.
Any questions, guys, in chat? Well, there is a question in there from Alex. You mean
Okay.
model appearance, RGB versus controller connection, right? Can't
Correct.
change the sequencer.
Correct. I'm
That's
trying
what
to
you see
use
is what you
terms.
get.
Yeah, I'm trying to use terms that are not xLights specific, even though sometimes it's unavoidable, because it doesn't matter what you're using, whether it's Minleon or xLights or Lightorama or whatever. The concepts are all the same, right? So I'm trying to use neutral language, but the output of your sequencer is going to have a specific color order, and your controller is going to have a specific color order, whether that's xLights or whatnot, or Lightorama. Either way, it's going to have a color order. So again, just trying to keep that neutral.
Tim says, I get told my lights cause seizures. I tell them they don't flash fast enough to do that.
Yeah, I don't know the science behind seizures, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
So quick question, everybody. I mean, and you feel free to put this in the chat. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but how many people out there are using anything, let's say 50 frames per second and higher, go ahead and put your hand up, or I think you should be able to put your hand up. And then we'll get over to, we'll see if anybody's doing at all 50 frames per second or higher. I see one hand.
So on that note,
Two.
Clyde, I loaded this up. So this is 24 ports with 100 pixels per port, and that gave me 55 frames per second. So at most, if you had a long chain of receivers, if you wanted more than 50 frames a second, you'd have to be 100 pixels.
100 pixels in. So that's why I bring this up. So how many people now, if you would, please put your hand up if you do 40 frames per second. 40 frames per second. I'm not saying 20, I'm saying 40. Only 40. Like, that's the one that seems to be the... Yeah.
That's what I use.
Yep, that's where we're going.
Yep.
So, and just curious, how many people are 20 frames per second? So that would be me. I put my hand up for that. You know, I don't know where the little...
I need now that I'm doing this, I need an autofill. Copy and paste everything.
So this is a good place. This is a good tool or a resource, and that's what you guys should think of it as, is a resource to kind of get some quick answers. And I like being able to direct people to the resource that answers them the best. But basically, if you're doing 40 frames per second, you're probably I mean 250 pixels, and you're doing what's that receiver setup? So you got receiver one.
So I changed this to, so this is fully packed. So this is 24 outputs and 250 pixels per output, and that gives me 22 frames per second. So if you had a fully loaded chain of receivers, you could still get your 20 frames per second at 250 pixels in output or less.
All right. Now I can't see the question, the chat window, so let me look.
So Don was talking, says, doesn't the controller automatically recalculate the frame rate no matter what you render at? And that is not the case, no. Every controller handles things a little bit differently. I will say it that way. But the frame rate, as I'm describing it here, has nothing to do with the sequence. The frame rate, as I'm describing it here, is just saying this is the best frame rate that you can hope for. So despite how you rendered your sequence, despite how your controller handles that sequence at different frame rates, doesn't matter. If you rendered a sequence at 40 frames a second and you try to output it to this setup here, it's not going to be able to refresh at 40 frames a second. It's not possible. It's only going to refresh at a max frame rate of 22 frames a second. So depending on how your controller handles that, you're either going to get skipped frames or different behavior that's probably not ideal. The Genius controllers, they pump out as many frames as it can per basically however many is the max number of pixels. It spits out the frames as fast as it can, no matter if it has a new frame or not. So I know that's a little bit different than some of the way the other ones work. I don't know the specifics of how, like, the Falcon or the Culp do it, but I would assume it's very similar. I would assume it's similar, which is if the sequence is done at 40 frames a second, but your configuration has it set up so that the outputs can do 60 frames a second, the Genius will actually output at 60 frames a second. It's just duplicating frames, right? So it's going to say like, oh, well, I'm ready for my next frame. Oh, you don't have a frame yet. Okay, I'm going to just send the last frame again because it doesn't have it yet. But anyways, going back to the numbers here, the numbers being shown here have nothing to do with the controller or the sequence file or the sequencer. All this number is meant to tell you is this is the best possible frame rate you can hope for given this setup. So given this setup that I'm showing right now of 250 pixels per output on 24 long-range ports, the best possible frame rate you can hope for is 22 frames a second.
Chris said there's xLights warns you if you go over what can be handled by the controller at your rendered frame rate. Does that mean it isn't accurate? I think that kind of got answered a little bit in what you just said.
Yeah. No, I think that that is accurate, but depending on how you have your controller configured, it can change things. So let's say you output your sequence at 40 frames a second. It says that everything's great because your controller can handle that. And then you configure your controller such that you have 1600 pixels on an output. Let's go back to here. So if I have, 1600 pixels on an output, the best thing that I can hope for is about 20 frames per second. It doesn't matter. You still have a sequence that is rendered out at 40 frames a second, but you have configured your controller such that it will not. Since you have your controller configured at 1600 pixels and on output, it can't push out that data at the required speed to refresh those 1600 pixels. So instead, it's going to be skipping frames from your sequence. It's going to be skipping every other frame, let's say. Alex has a visualizer overlay. You're perfect. So if you've configured it in the visualizer such that it's 16, so Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. If you put 1600 pixels on an output, but you've configured your sequence for 40 frames a second, it'll tell you, hey, you can't do that. That's not going to work. Is that accurate? Oh, that's fine.
So how do you do a 32 port or a 64 port?
So this has nothing to do with the long range receiver calculator has nothing to do with 32 port or 64 port, which actually I don't know if anything has 64 ports. I don't know where that one came from, but 32 port. These are just long range strings. So this is visualizing a single long range string of daisy chained receivers, which you can have a maximum of 24 long range receivers daisy chained. On this guy, this is a single output. So again, it doesn't have anything to do with 32 ports or 16 ports. This is just saying on a single output, what is the best frame rate you can get for a certain number of pixels on an output? And the way that it works, if you have a 32 port controller, let's say, and every single output has 100 pixels hooked up, but one single output has 1300 pixels set on it, the entire controller is now constrained down to 25 frames a second. It always takes the largest output that you have, the output with the most number of pixels, and that's going to be your best possible frame rate. So Steve, I saw your message earlier, so I'll address that real quick. Can you imagine a world where long range are not port constrained to 4 ports? And it's absolutely possible. The way that long range works today is if you hook up a pixel to pin number 1 of your your Cat6 cable that is plugged into a long range port. I know this is a little confusing. It will work. That data that is going through that Cat6 cable, that Cat5 cable, is the same data, the exact same speed and everything that is coming out of your local pixel ports. It's just going down a differential line, which is 4 twisted pairs, which is where 4 outputs come from. There's no reason why you can't speed that up, 5x, 10x, what have you. And then all of a sudden now that whole scenario changes. I can speak for Genius. That's a pretty big architectural change. It's something that can be done, but it requires the entire ecosystem change. So the controllers have to change, the receivers have to change. There's going to be ecosystem lock-in, which is what I was trying to avoid with Genius, because we originally had planned to do exactly what you're describing. Originally, we called it port compression. This is secret sauce here. No, we were going to do port compression, which was going to allow you to output long-range data at a much higher speed, such that these situations with daisy chaining wasn't an issue anymore. And it's fully possible. However, then you get lock-in into a specific ecosystem, which I did not want. I wanted this to be something that was compatible with everything. So that is the reason it wasn't done. It can be done. It still can be done. And it's still something that I think about. But I don't want to do ecosystem lock-in. That's the thing that I don't like.
Well, that's the hard thing is that everybody has to agree on it. Everybody.
Yeah,
And one thing that you'll almost never get in this hobby is everybody to agree on everything.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So in my question, I have two long-range SR4s that has a total of 32 ports, 150 pixel per port. The UI doesn't allow me to configure. In my question, I have two SR4 that has a total of, I'm a little confused at that statement. Oh no, Alex is bringing it back to Mac is better than, and so is 5 volts. That's okay. Um, D Gates, we'll come back to that maybe in the chat after so I can understand that a little bit better. I'm going to just finish up here with the last one and then we can open it up to more questions here. Okay, last one because I know I'm running long and I apologize. So this is the network protocol. So this is a debate that always goes on, and I always just like guys, this isn't an opinion. It's like there's numbers, there's hard numbers on why DDP is more efficient than E131 and ArtNet. So there's two different metrics here that we're looking at, and you can compare this by entering in the number of pixels, the number of channels per pixel, and then the frame rate that you're looking at, and you'll see on the right, the charts reflect the amount of traffic on the network for the given protocol. So what you'll notice is that in just raw data, DDP sends about 20% less data than E131. So that is the amount of bytes that are sent. The exact same light show information is being sent over the network. The difference of this 20% is all header information that is literally thrown in the garbage. So you have a 20% reduction in network traffic in 20% of network data that is just absolute just garbage that's just thrown away and ignored. And then packets is where there is a lot of improvement because DDP sends 65% fewer packets for the exact same amount of lighting data than E131 and ArtNet, because E131 and ArtNet only contain one universe worth of data, whereas DDP can hold up to 1440 bytes, which is roughly three universes worth of data. So the gains of DDP are quite apparent. Now, a big pushback or complaint I get from people on DDP is, well, what happens when, they like to leave gaps and things for universes. And it's really quite easy. I mean, you can do the same thing with DDP is instead of having, your one channel block be continuous, which is kind of like the default, you can have things start at a specific channel number for a specific prop. So you can say, well, I'm going from, channel 1 to 10,000 is going to be on my first controller. And then, when you start at a grid 22, you'd say, okay, well, this grid is going to start at channel 11,000. I don't know if what I said was accurate, but just so you leave a gap there of about 1,000 channels. That way, if you change something, in that first controller, it's not offsetting all of the channel numbers downstream. So you can do the similar thing. But this really is just meant to visualize why DDP is more efficient and what the numbers actually are. This bottom one down here is the reason why, not the one up here, the bottom one is the reason why Genius can do 20,000 on DDP, pixels on DDP, and 10,000 on E131 and ArtNet. It has nothing to do with the amount of data, it has everything to do with the number of packets. And so for Genius specifically, since it's not getting flooded with as many packets, it can process more with fewer packets. So that is why Genius much prefers DDP over E131 and ArtNet. Okay, I am done talking. Can we open it up for conversation now? Because I'm tired. Oh man, my mouth is dry. Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted there.
So, David, please read your Facebook message that I sent you before I say anything.
Yep. We
I don't have anything right now.
Okay. No, we just want to make sure. We're going
Okay.
to we're going to cut off the live video feed here.
Okay.
We are going to go into an open Q&A session where people get to unmute their microphones, and Brad has his hand up because he can't wait to talk to you. But in any event, this has been quite a lot of information. So we're going to
And if I could say one more thing before you sign off.
Sure.
That this website, qa-www.lightshowhub.com, is available for everybody to go to, and I encourage you to go to it. And I forgot to mention this. So on the page that you're on, let's say I'm editing this model here. From that page, if you do submit a bug report, and you do, David, and I understand that this is going to be a one-way message because I'm not going to reply to all these emails, just FYI. But it's going to generate an email that it has all your environment information, what browser you're using, the screenshots, whether you have WebGL enabled, all the config values for the thing that you're currently doing. This allows me, the URLs automatically populated. So this allows me to kind of see the environment that you had a problem in. So make sure and submit a bug report from the place that you have a problem. It'll shoot me an email, go into my queue, and make sure that I can address that when I get the time. But yeah, so please do it, please use it, and make sure and submit bug reports when you see them, please.
No, and that's we just wanted to get. I know this was a lot of information. Dave was super excited when we were at where were we? Christmas trade show, Transworld. When we were there, you were very excited to want to talk about this, and you went
specifically the auto numbering. I think the auto numbering on custom models is pretty rad.
Yeah. So with that being said, guys, join us in the Zoom room if you're watching. If you're watching this on the recording, go ahead and put your questions in chat below or in the comment section down below. We may be able to answer the questions. I don't know, but we can always ask David, or it spurs other videos that we might record for you guys if you have questions about things in the hobby. So,
Yep.
All right, guys, that's everything we have for you tonight. Rob, thanks for getting us going, and David, thanks for joining us. It's been great having you. So, everybody, peace out. Have a great evening. We will talk to you soon, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, and goodbye for now.
And hey, I would just like to add, next month, we'll be attending a show out in the Philadelphia area. It's called the East Coast Christmas Show. It's primarily all DIY. Christmas enthusiasts will be there. It is, I think it's like $65 for the 2 days to go out to it and stuff like that. It's the first year for the Christmas. I went last year for the haunt, and it was absolutely ridiculous. I think they have over 200 vendors on the haunt side right now. And then on the Christmas side, I'm not sure the number, but I know xLights will be there. I know the one and only, the great Clyde Lindsay will be there. I might attend this one. But no, it sounds like it's going to be a good time. This is the first time they're doing it for the Christmas, and they're open to a lot of ideas about it too. So just figured I'd throw that out there because it's going to be next month.
That's good.
$55 to go somewhere for 2 days to see over, 200 plus vendors. Halloween and Christmas is pretty phenomenal.
So there's also a couple other minis coming up, isn't there, David?
Yeah. So the inaugural Music City Lighting Summit is on Saturday, the 22nd. So it's coming up.
Robert and I are not going to be there.
You guys told me you were coming, so this is very
no. We told you, and then you changed the date, and then we said no. Too bad. We're not coming now.
I'll be there, David. I'll be there.
Oh my gosh. But no, we if the date hadn't changed, then we would have certainly been. able to join. But anyway, tell us more.
Yeah.
Tell us more where it is. What's the
Yeah. So it's in Nashville. So you can, if you guys are in a driving distance, it's musiccitylightingsummit.com. You can get all the details there. We made.
You guys got like Dolly Parton performing, don't you?
Dolly Parton is attending. Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Post Malone.
She's a close personal friend.
Post Malone sponsored all the Bud Light.
Yeah, there's Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll will be attending. Yeah. But
I won't be.
you will not. You will not be there. Lost my train of thought. But yes, it's our first year. We have about 130 people registered. So who knows? It's a free registration. So I was telling David Henry, I'm like, well, 130 people registered. I don't know how many people are actually going to be showing up, but it'll be a good first year regardless. We're looking forward to it. Yeah, that's on Saturday.
All right.
And then we'll also be at lots of other ones.
And then I believe Florida Mega Mini is coming up too, right?
Yep, Florida Mega Mini is like the week after that. Then there's Frozen Mini. There's the Indiana Mini. There's the Heartland Mini, and the best one, South Carolina. South Carolina with Russell McFarland. That one everyone needs to go to.
That's SoCar.
SoCar.
It's SoCar.
Yep.
You named that one.
It all started as a joke, but now David moved closer to it so he could tend to reach.
Yeah.
I could drive. Yep.
All right, guys. So that's everything we have for you tonight.